So Dave, this video is all about druids, right? So you prepared to take a walk on the wild side?
Oh, you want to record this video all natural?
Whoa, 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 for the sake of all that's holy, do not do that!
Okay, Ted, what did you have in mind?
How about we just talk about creating the all-druid party for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons?
Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Nerdarchy is a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we even talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
Well, it looks like the stuff is already out, so we might as well go into our sponsor segment of the video and thank Easy Roller Dice. They have you covered for all your dice rolling needs, whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice. Easy Roller Dice, we got a special one-time promo code for a whopping 20% off down in the description below.
Sad to see all that beautiful dice go, but, I'm certain we want to get into the meat of this video.
All right, so we're going to be doing the all-druid party. There's a couple things to go over when discussing the druids. One is, they don't actually need a whole lot of things. You can cover a lot of roles playing the druid. Druids are already kind of like conjurers, summoners, healers, control, AoE. They've got a lot of those areas covered already, so you don't need to work particularly hard there. Their deficiencies are going to be they don't have high armor classes, so no one is super tanky through armor class. And then the other thing is you're a little deficient in when it comes to the skills.
They are a die 8 hit die, so they're not getting that D10, D12. So there are going to be some issues on hit points unless you specifically are going with the wild shaping druid, Circle of the Moon, where you're going to be shape changing into stronger and better beasts.
So, jumping into the different subclasses, like we said, there's 5. Circle of Dreams gives you travel, exploration, and extra healing, which the druid already gets healing, but you're going to get even more of it. And also, it's worth mentioning, all druids are kind of good at the exploration phase, but some of them are even better.
So your Circle of the Spores is kind of a damage output, your DPS, if you will, and with the power to make minions, they're helpful in that category as well.
Circle of the Land is going to be a lot of control, AoEs, and exploration, and a lot of that's going to also depend on which specific Circle of the Land you choose, because that's going to change up your spell selection. So it might give you access to some spells that a wizard would get, like Lightning Bolt, depending on it. And generally, like, the druid doesn't get as big EoE effects as the wizard. They're kind of like second class in that regards. They get a lot of control. But by choosing the right land, that's going to open up your spell selection.
So pay attention to that for the entire duration. So, choose well. When we're looking at Circle of the Moon, as I mentioned, they've got the capabilities to be the better, wild shaper, which is going to give them more hit points than any other druid. So they're going to fall into our tank role.
So the Circle of the Shepherd really doubles down on the summoner minion aspect of playing the druid. So I will say, when I look at these, like, there are no throwaway circles in my opinion, where it's like, oh no, we have 5 or 6 players, but I would rather take an extra of this than take them all. In this case, I think you're good to go with every single circle, and they all offer something of value to the party.
Make a 5-person party, play all druids. If you were forced to make a 4-person party, would you have one that you would, be able to say, well, this is the bottom, or would it be a tough choice?
I think it would be a tough choice depending on what you wanted to do, because they all offer something, different. The Circle of Dreams, maybe, but that's the one that gives you the extra healing, right? So, that one feature alone is kind of worth being Circle of Dreams, and it also, that ability scales and gets better as you level. So it makes up for some areas where maybe some of the abilities are a little more lackluster.
And let's face it, with that die 8 hit die, getting access to more healing, the lower armor class getting access to more healing is going to be very helpful.
Well, and not only that, Bomb of the Summer Court is something they can do. It's not a spell. So they can do it while they're wild shaped, and it has a little more versatility, has range. It's a good ability.
All right, so we're not really lacking on any of our chosen roles. But here's where we normally break down and say, okay, well, if we were to build this party, what other things that we get to choose, like races in this case, are going to add to our deficiencies.
So when it comes to races, there's two things that I would look at if I was making an all druid party, and that is, does it add more skills or skill areas that aren't really covered by the druid, and and tankiness? Is there something that's going to increase our hit points or our armor class? Because, like we said, the druid is the die 8. Unless you go with the moon, circle of the moon, then you get those extra hit points from wild shaping.
And let's face it, certain racial abilities are going to apply even while you're in wild shape, so it gets you a little bit extra bang for your buck.
So now looking at our races, we're going to break them down into skills. We'll do the skills first. There's 5 of them. We have Half Elf and Kenku. Both of them are going to give you extra skills. Half Elf is great because it gives you choice.
The Tabaxi, the Changeling, and the Githyanki are also races that are going to give you access to more skills. So super helpful in that regards.
And not only that, they're going to offer other abilities as well and features. They're going to make your druid a little bit different than the other ones. But again, we're covering that deficiencies for skill. Next, we're going to move into tankiness. And there's actually a bunch of races that can kind of help us with that, either through damage mitigation, more hit points, or a better armor class. So we've got Hill Dwarf, Goliath, and Half-Orc, all of which either add more hit points or damage mitigation. In this case, more hit points and then 2 damage mitigations.
We have Shifter, we have Turtle, we have Warforge. The Shifter, has a lot of different options when it comes to the different things that they can choose when they shift, whether it's the more hit points, whether it's the more damage. The Turtle is just an amazing armor class buff. You can sack your decks and not worry about it. I think this would be good for a caster aspect as opposed to Circle of the Moon, where you're going to be shifting and you'd lose access to that amazing armor class. And then I would also look at, Warforge, which, winds up falling into a better armor class as well.
So Loxodon, Lizardfolk, and Locath, they all have alternate means of calculating armor class. So the fact that you can't really wear great armor as a druid usually, you're restricted to natural non-metal armors, until you can finally maybe find some dragon scale or something. These are good substitutes, and they also offer other cool abilities as well.
Yeah, the lizard folk, getting that natural survivor. I think that's actually a really great race for a druid, especially if you're going to go with a little bit more of the darker angle, them being shamanistic.
Very thematic. Next up, we have backgrounds. For backgrounds, we're going to look at trying to cover the deficiencies of certain skills, especially those more personable skills, those charisma-based skills, as well as, if you need to detect and find and get rid of traps.
Those shady skills, if you would.
So we have Charlatan, Criminal, and Faceless. All of them are going to be great for that.
So we have Faction Agent, Guild Artisan, and Guild Merchant. You're going to get more skills and tools that the Druid just doesn't get access to.
Then finally, we have Noble and Urchin, which, again, more interpersonal skills as well as access to Thieves' tools. If you're going to need someone to find and remove those traps. Unlike the Barbarian, who could use their face, Druids don't have enough hit points for that.
That is so true. So next, we're going to look at feats, and there's quite a lot that Druids do lack that feats are going to be able to lift them up with. So let's dive into it.
So essentially, we broke it down into combat and skill feats. And skill feats being anything that adds either new things to their repertoire or enhances already existing.
So for our combat, the first 3 we have Charger, Grappler, and Mobile. Mobile is going to be useful for anyone being able to get around on the battlefield. Super helpful. Charger is great for druids because they don't get access to extra attack. And if you're wild shaping and you choose something that doesn't have multi-attack, it's going to be beneficial. It actually gets into a little bit of control to be able to push them into existing spell effects or push them over a cliff. Super helpful. If you're changing into something that is designed to grapple, Grappler is super helpful in that situation as well.
So next up, Polearm Master, Sentinel, and Savage Attacker. Savage Attacker just re-rolling and doing more damage. If this is the particular druid you decide is going to be your hard-hitting druid, that can be useful. Polearm Master and Sentinel work really well together, and a Quarterstaff works with Polearm Master. And Shillelagh is something a cantrip you would cast on a staff or a quarterstaff, so you can then double down on that, and you can totally build a druid that is basically a staff fighter, get an extra attack, get some control effects, and make your druid a little more interesting as well.
I would definitely be, an unseen take. So, lastly, in our combat section of feats, we have Shield Master and Tough, both great combat feats. Shield Master, that's going to be for your druid who's going to be sticky, not wild shaping, and you're going to fight with that weapon. And Tough, useful for all druids because, as we said earlier, they have that D8 hit die. They just don't get enough hit points.
And if you're not worried about doing as much damage, you can technically use the quarterstaff and the shield at the same time.
So you could have that, Polar Master, Shield Master, and Sentinel.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting all the feats from, but you can definitely do it.
That's all you're doing, maybe.
So now we're going to move into skills, and we have Dungeon Delver, Linguist, and Observant.
We also have Skilled and Prodigy. All of these things are enhancing abilities, getting access to more skills. Super helpful, in that skill deficient, druid, because they just don't get as many as, say, bards and rogues.
Now, Prodigy is very specific to the half races and human, but it is one of the few ways in the game to get expertise without being a bard or a rogue.
And expertise, as we've seen through the many games that we've played, expertise is super helpful. So, any way that I can get access to that on whatever my chosen is, I want it.
All right, so this is the part where we actually put the party together. So we said for 4, if we're going to leave one off, it's probably going to be the shepherd, but I'm not entirely sure. Like you could probably leave off anybody but the Circle of the Moon, and be pretty good. If we go with 5, you're just completely covered. You could go one of each. Now, if you go with 6, who do you take the extra in? I kind of have an idea where I would go.
Given the way druids are built out, I'd have to go with an extra moon. Their tankiness, is super helpful. They're going to be the ones that are going to guarantee to get into melee, whereas the other ones just don't make that choice. They're naturally casters by design, and that means that they're going to get pushed in the back, which means you really need an extra combat person. If you were to build out let me take a hill dwarf, strap on, the best armor that I can get and build it out and enhance using the party's resources of spells to build somebody who's designed to stay up there, then you might go with something else. But I'd have to lean towards the moon.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of resources to do that for one. And I was going Circle of the Moon as well. If you have two of them up in the front to hold the line, pretty much that's going to keep anyone from getting by. And then, your other 3 to 4 druids are in the back raining death and doom and support from behind the front line. A Circle of the Spores, that would be your midline, your circle line. They, using their spore ability to add more damage and probably animating enemies as the Circle of the Moon drop them. So you'd have a lot of options there, but that's definitely the way I would go. So now let's look at how we use this party and what kind of adventures they're going to go on.
Well, I'm going to say for use, I see this as a very high resting party. I see them taking a lot of short rests and long rests to refresh abilities. There's a lot of stuff that they need to keep going. With that low hit points, I see them casting a lot of healing spells. So I would see them definitely looking for items that are going to boost hit points or that are meant to restore hit points, like your potions, scrolls, that kind of stuff.
Well, one of the things is as you progress in levels, you can stay in wild shape longer and longer. And the party of druids doesn't have the same problem that some other parties are going to have. Like, you can ritually cast Speak with Animals, so communicating with your wild shape companions is less of an issue.
That is true.
And depending on what kind of druid you go with too, there's other ways of getting around that as well. So with that is interesting. But now I want to look at what kind of adventures they're going to go on. How do we get all these druids together into a party? What kind of campaigns are we going to run as the DM?
So this is totally going to be a wilderness game. I see this as they don't really care about visiting civilization. Perhaps you're either doing this as like a frontier game, and all right, you've got people and they're exploring unknown territory, so you have to get those individuals who have the capacity to blend in. And let's face it, who's going to blend in better in nature than druids? They've all got the ability to wild shape, which means even if the non-circle of the moon turns into squirrels and birds and what have you, maybe not birds, but at least the smaller things, that they can just go and to monsters and stuff, that's just wildlife. So they can easily move through terrain, move through places that other parties just can't get to. Oh, well, you know what? We're just going to climb this tree. Poof, we're squirrels, and now we're up the tree, and no one's the wiser. It's just something that's doable.
I feel like if you were running an Eberron game, it would be really easy to do this, and you just use the Gatekeeper organization, which consists of a lot of druids anyway. They're the natural enemies of aberrations, the Plane of Zeriat, the Dalkir. So you could totally base a whole campaign on, there's portals opening up, or someone's trying to free one of the greater Dalkir, and the druids have gotten wind of it, the gatekeepers have gotten wind of it, and they put together their strike team of druids to deal with this threat. And maybe it is happening in Khyber, which is basically the Underdark for Eberron, and the entrance to where they need to be could be, located in Sharn or one of the other major cities. So you could do the fish out of water and send them all into the city for a little bit in order to get to where they need to go. You could do some side questing that way. So I feel like that would be a really easy way. But any kind of major threat to not just the wilderness but the natural order would bring druids together. Druids, by and large themselves, they're an organization. Even though they don't have the trappings of civilization, it's still very much an organization and a religion. So it would be really easy to put them together and have a hierarchy of greater druids or hierophants going, hey, we need a thing done, and everyone send us your best apprentice or whatever, and we're gonna send these folks out into the world to fix the problem.
Oh, I mean, in editions past, they absolutely were an organization, and you had to challenge somebody stronger than you in order to gain the next level. So you could definitely steal a lot from that and make that be an organization in your world, and have them be responsible for protecting boundaries from other worlds and whatnot. There's a lot of great things you can do.
Absolutely, but the question is, how would you use druids in your game? How would you do the all druid party? Is the DM or the player? Let us know. Before we head on out, let me take a moment to invite you to join Nerdarchy, the adventuring party. What can I expect over there, Ted?
We're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons that both players and DMs alike can drop right into their game.
But that's not all. We do monthly giveaways, and our patrons are automatically entered.
We do weekly hangouts with our patrons and more.
So quest on down to the description, join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party on Patreon, and until next time,
stay nerdy.